Adeola Dupont here with Matchroom Chairman Barry Hearn. Barry, we're just a day away. You must be excited. Excited? Nervous? Bit of both?
I think definitely excited. I don't think I felt this type of excitement. I'll try and analyse my levels of excitement. It goes back to Benn Eubank 1 in 1990 when, such a fight of such importance in the careers of certain fighters. And you're always nervous. You get less nervous as you get older because you're closer to God, so what can hurt you, If you don't get run over, you're fine. But, of course, in the context of professional boxing, this is a massive fight.
Matchroom have put on some massive fight cards over the last sort of 10, 15 years, huge ones. Wembley, we've seen now, obviously, we've made the move to America as well. Where would you put this in that kind of ranking? Is it at the top? Is it bigger than Joshua Klitschko?
Yeah, I think it's different to Joshua Klitschko. Each one's a breakthrough fight for different reasons, And I don't think it's really been 10 or 15. I think it's probably been 7 or 8 since Eddie really took over the boxing. The old man was shit, so we had nothing to beat, did he, really? And I was ever so pleased that someone else wanted to do it because after 30-odd years, it was getting a bit of a pain. He's taken it to another level across the board, but there's certain key fights that were monumental changes. Carl Froch, Audley Harrison, fight wasn't very good, but that sort of brought pay-per-view back, so that was a key moment. Then going outdoors with, obviously, with Froch and following up with AJ, Klitschko fight, and going to the stadium in Wales. These are another key moments. The zone launching globally has been a key moment for our whole company across 12 different sports, not just boxing, but boxing's been the biggest one. And of course, when DAZN looked at the American pay market, subscription market, most of the really big sporting rights were already bought. So when you're launching, you look around and say, okay, we're going to launch this billion-dollar service, but what are we going to have on it? There's bits and pieces, and they did all my stuff as well. But then they looked and said, well, boxing's actually is such a splintered, broken model with old school people doing old school things and nothing really changing other than decline, which was decline with the UFC and the other constraints on people. The actual quality of the shows, I think, overall was very poor. There was a few big ones, of course, but mismatches and the number of belts on offer doesn't add to the perception of sport to the casual fan. The purist understands it, but the casual fan doesn't. And so boxing was actually ripe for taking over. The question was, the patient's injured, is he going to survive the operation was probably the question, and Eddie's come and done a fabulous job. And we're 1 year and a bit into building or rebuilding boxing in America. Now, while that's happening, it's very exciting for us, big plush offices in New York, suddenly we're proper players, we're the guys from England that everyone hates in America because we're better than they are, and they don't like to admit it. The old school promoters, myself included, Aram, Warren, these type of guys, we're dinosaurs, There's another world out there now, and the world is young people, it's digital, it's watching things when you want to watch it, and that fits into the DAZN model. So that was a quantum moment for us in boxing, and now we find ourselves, because of the attention globally to people seen on TV, wow, where's this 90,000 people come from? Who is this Anthony Joshua? Where's this energy coming into boxing that hasn't been there before? And needless to say, the Saudis, being the type of country they are, they want global awareness, they want to show their country in different light than exists, and boxing is big news. And of course, this is another quantum move because we don't know where it's going to lead from here. Is this a one-off? Is this a beginning? I think it's probably the beginning because for years we've talked about it potentially with Abu Dhabi, with Bahrain, with Dubai, with Qatar. Never really happened, at the level that makes our interest pick up. We're not building boxing in Saudi Arabia, we're bringing the finished product to Saudi Arabia. It's a different mindset than it is perhaps in America where you're rebuilding and doing big fights. So I think this is the next quantum move for boxing. Where it goes, I don't honestly know. A lot will depend on the fight tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a spectacle. Certainly no stone has been left unturned either by the creation of the site, which is phenomenal.
Amazing.
The fact that it can be done, your viewers or your listeners, put this in your head, from a piece of ground to a 15,000 plush hospitality stroke, not a bad seat in the house venue, in 45 days.
And you would know this as well as the ex-chairman of Leyton Orient. You know how difficult that is as well.
Well, I think as a current resident in the United Kingdom, it takes me longer to get a pothole filled in my local road. 45 days, which shows you the great message out there is what things can be achieved if you have the resource and the desire to get a job finished. So everyone has done their job. I think the card looks great on paper. We don't box on paper, but who knows? It looks great on paper. The main event looks fascinating because no one really knows what's going to happen. I don't have a hell of a clue. So it could be that quantum moment that you look back. I think I tend to look back over my career because I'm getting old. But Eddie at 40, I think when he looks back on his career when he's 50, he may pinpoint 2 or 3 of those times I've told you as being the time that boxing changed forever and became once again a mainstream sport.
Let's talk about, I guess I want to call him the flag bearer for Matchroom the last few years, Anthony Joshua. How much pressure on Anthony Joshua to deliver tomorrow?
Well, I think a colossal amount of pressure, but the pressure comes from inside, not outside. When you're financially fixed for life, when you're adored by millions of people, when you've got a lovely life and you're happy. But enough about me, you know. Yeah, I think with Anthony, the desire is for him to regain his belts. And although we live in a monetary world, and obviously there's a huge amount of money on this fight and a huge resting on this fight, it really sounds bizarre. It doesn't really matter. We're here to win. We're here to win. And that's much more important than anything else. And I think it's an attitude that I share with Anthony is, it doesn't matter whether it's $1, $10 or $10 million. You know, you've got to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I did okay. And that's the pressure on Anthony Joshua. It's pressure that he's put on himself.
I know you and Eddie always plan for the future, months and maybe not even years ahead possibly. Has there been a discussion at all what happens if AJ loses?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you run a business the size of ours, you've got to look at, you know, it's part of doing your job. My job is to maximise my earnings for my clients and maximise my earnings for myself. Really straightforward, very common sense. So naturally you have to look at every potential outcome. You look at it and say, Anthony Joshua wins. Once again, I mean, he's bigger than he was before he lost to Ruiz because rematches work that way generally. There's a fantastic time to be a heavyweight boxer because there's probably 8. You know, normally you scratch around, you think, I mean, when we pick Ruiz, you know, you scratch around thinking, who can we find who's credible, who can put up a good fight, give the fans value for money, and we beat. Well, we got 3 out of 4, you know, which is not bad. But today's market for heavyweights, there's probably 8 heavyweights you could say a name and everyone would go, yeah, that's a good fight. So you look at it. Defeat probably means, I don't think it means the end of Anthony Joshua. I think it means probably a 12-month layoff. He's 30 years old. He's no age for a heavyweight. You know, he's only had 24 fights. But it just is the desire and the heart there. And that's the question that Anthony would have to ask himself. I believe he would say there is. And I believe we would sit there and say, right, well, we'll have a year off. We'll work more on technique. We'll do this. We're not the finished model. We know we're not the finished model anyway. There's a lot of improvement still left. And we'll regroup, and the Wilder, Fury, Usyk, White fights, and more names I could mention, are going to be out there in a year anyway. The difficulty in boxing, of course, fight fans are very emotional. You know, they always want the biggest fight tomorrow because, I don't know, that's what they want. The customer says, go and get it. And, you know, some of them disappointed that Anthony hasn't fought Deontay Wilder so far. But it's interesting that the Deontay Wilder fight against Anthony Joshua, should Anthony Joshua win, will be 3 or 4 times more lucrative than it was when the fans originally wanted it and said, you're not doing your job, Hearns, go and make that fight. Well, as much as we value fans, we value our client better. And that's how we run a business. So we've looked at every outcome, we've planned procedures. I know Eddie's looking at Usyk, sort of February time. Is it Chisora? Is it Parker? I don't know. But, you know, we're looking at a great fight on with his Povetkin fight on Saturday. There's another prospect coming up there. Some of these Eastern European guys are fearless. Yep. You know, they've had 10 fights, they'll fight anybody. So it's a really exciting time for heavyweight boxing. And I think the fact that you and I and lots of other people are talking boxing, and there is this level, is some sort of test tube to the interest that's out there. You know, I've got to tell you, 5 years ago, you and I wouldn't have been having this conversation.
Agreed.
Or if we were, it might have been just you. You know? But now it's like 18 of them sitting there. But that's great. That's great for the sport. And it inspires people. It inspires people to follow in their footsteps. And I think people get... Boxing achieves more than just what an individual achieves in the ring. You know, it is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle of choice. It's built on very sound principles. And it's something that can do a country like Saudi, which has a 25% diabetes rate, where 75% of the population are under 25, and they sit and play on their Game Boys, you know? So boxing is like a message, and you wonder how deep it goes. I hope it can be a restructural message and the restructure of a new society in Saudi as well. There's lots of things you can learn from sport generally, and boxing is probably the biggest advocate of a good life.
I want to touch on Dillian Whyte very quickly before we end, and thank you for your time, Barry. There is obviously this small issue, or I'll say small grey cloud right now with UKAD. Is it just a simple case of he's got his license, he's allowed to fight, let him fight?
Yeah, it is, but I think, you know, I'm not involved in running the boxing, so I get the freedom to be able to speak my mind. And what's happened to Dillian Whyte is nothing short of disgraceful. He is free to fight, of course he is free to fight. If there was any issues on his health or his drug record, he wouldn't be free to fight. But the fact that UKAD and people like that have been so silent for so many months is absolutely diabolical, because in some people's mind it puts a seed of doubt, and there is no seed of doubt. And I don't know when these bureaucrats open their mouth and say, oh, OK, we got that wrong, or he's OK, sorry, and move on, because it's unacceptable to me, and that behaviour is unacceptable. If a man is guilty of a drug abuse, I want him out of the game. Don't get me wrong, out the game. He has no place. Dillian Whyte is not, and all the tests have shown he's not. So what on earth is slowing up the official announcement to say, oops-a-daisy, carry on Dillian? And the fact that he's allowed to fight says it all, but it doesn't say enough.
What can be done to speed up the process? I mean, we saw the same issue with Tyson Fury, saw the same issue recently with Ryan Martin. Can anything be done with the British Boxing Board to control yourselves at Matchroom and UKAD to speed the process up?
Everyone's frightened of making a statement. They're gutless. They're gutless. You know, speak the mind. We all make mistakes. Listen, what someone once said, I think it was Rockefeller said, if I haven't made 12 mistakes by lunchtime, I'm still in bed. You know, I mean, it's human. And systems are not without fault. I'm not even going to give a reason, because I don't know the full facts. All I know is Dillian Whyte is clean. He's allowed to box. There is no issue on it at all, but no one has actually said that in black and white. And I don't know what you can do to speed them up. They're an organisation that don't seem to have any communication of skills and seem to just like testing people and causing controversy and then moving away into the shadows. Well, I'd like them to come into the sunshine and speak their mind and tell me, good news or bad news, I don't really care. Not being funny, I mean, I love Dillian Whyte, but I know he's clean because I know the tests are clean. But I'm lost for words. I think it's the most diabolical invasion of someone's privacy and someone's reputation. I think it's damaging for no fault of Dillian Whyte's. And these people should get off their backside and actually say something.
Right, finally, Barry, and thank you again for your time. Sum up how big an event for this is for people back home that maybe just don't realise how big an event it is and how big it is to have an event, in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, obviously it's massive. I mean, it's a huge rematch and all that sort of stuff. But to put it in context, this is the biggest grossing heavyweight fight of all time. Need I say more? We've been boxing heavyweights for 300 years. This is the biggest grossing financial heavyweight fight of all time.
Bigger than Lewis Tyson?
Bigger than Lewis Tyson, gross revenue. Bigger than Lewis Tyson. Much bigger than Lewis Tyson, actually. But in a funny sort of way, it don't matter, because two men are putting their pride and their reputation on the line, and you couldn't ask for two finer athletes. You know, one may not look like an athlete, but he has the skill set of an athlete. Don't worry about that. And all these guys that make their mind up say, oh, look at him. They know nothing. Because I know people that look like Greek goddesses. Greek gods, not goddesses. Greek gods. And they can't fight at all. Ruiz is a great fighter. Joshua is a great fighter. And today, I'm going into a fight tomorrow night for one of the rare occasions of my life. I have no idea what's going to happen.
There you go. Final words from Barry Hearn, chairman of Matchroom out here in Saudi Arabia. Barry, thanks for your time.
Pleasure, mate.